Hello everyone, it's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel, tap the notification bell, and like this video. That does help me keep making videos, and I would appreciate it majorly. So I want to try to just provide an update on the developments in Israel and Gaza, the fighting that's been taking place. That began Saturday morning, I think, and it all started over. I think 4 Palestinians, two were killed Friday after two separate instances. I'll try to get to that. How this all got started, and I think Saturday morning, 50 rockets were fired from Gaza by Hamas into Israel, just sort of indiscriminately. In fact, I don't think there's those can't be really aimed that well, as I understand it. They're just fired in a general direction, towards civilians. And but it's the number of rockets that have been fired has just grown and grown, and Israel has responded with airstrikes, that just absolutely pound Gaza, pound. And so I think we're up to 8 Palestinians killed, and actually an Israeli was killed. A 58-year-old man, which I was a little bit shocked to learn is the first Israeli civilian killed since the 2014 war. So in 5 years, that's the first Israeli citizen killed by aggression from the Palestinians, namely Hamas. There's another smaller group that's like an offshoot that operates independently of Hamas in Gaza. The Islamic Jihad or something like that, Islamic Jihad movement. It'll be mentioned maybe in one of these articles. There's a ton of footage over at the Daily Mail over the last few days. Some of it's quite dramatic, and you can see the damage in both Palestine and Israel. So the airstrikes they just absolutely pound. They just level buildings, and the rockets. I've never really seen these. They're short and short range rockets. I think some of them are a little bit bigger than others. The bigger ones can actually fly like 40 miles or something like that and reach some of the larger cities in Israel. But many of them can't even go that far from Hamas. I kind of it's difficult to take a position. I generally am a pro-Israel kind of person, Republican, but I do think that they're way too heavy-handed with the Palestinians. The Palestinians are more or less, they're just poor and have almost no military might to them whatsoever, other than these rockets that they fire in there, and they do minimal damage. They just do. You see a plume of smoke and stuff like that, and there's some damage, to the homes, and you might level a portion of a home, or you might have like a man-sized hole into a building or something like that. But the response from the Israelis, because they have one of the most mighty military forces in the world, even though they're just a country of, I don't even know, 6 or 8 million people, they're just a fierce military with the most advanced technology and air force. They level entire buildings, entire blocks, street blocks become, a pile of rubble, So I think a lot of people think that, and they may be right, that a lot of people that are pro-Israeli or pro-Israel feel that Israel is attacked unprovoked, and I think that there may be some truth to that, But again, it's just the heavy-handedness with which they deal with the Palestinians. I feel is way too much, man. It's just way too much. So, but whatever. So, but they are, Netanyahu is actually moving more forces to the border along Gaza, and as well as tanks, preparing for possible, like a land incursion into Gaza, which would be that'd be the worst, because then you're just, it'll just keep getting worse and worse. But it's continuing to escalate. And, sort of people who follow the situation say that it's far from over right now. And people are trying already. Officials are meeting already, trying to broker some kind of truce or ceasefire that was in place and had already been negotiated back in March and through officials in Egypt, to kind of stop the fighting. So, I mean, it's difficult to sort of report on all this because there's a ton of information. So Israel's ground troops are reportedly preparing to siege the Gaza perimeter after Palestinian militants fired more than 450 rockets onto their territory, which killed the first Israeli citizen in cross-border hostilities since 2014. That number is up to 600 now, that 450. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Hamas, the dissident group which rules Gaza, is paying a heavy price for the attacks on his country, and he ordered a large military corps up to the besieged enclave as the months-long ceasefire is left in tatters. In a statement to his cabinet this morning, Mr. Netanyahu said, "I instructed the military this morning to continue its massive strikes on the terror elements in the Gaza Strip and ordered it to reinforce the troops around the Gaza Strip with tanks, artillery, and infantry force." Moshe Agadi, a 58-year-old father of four, was struck in the chest by shrapnel during the missile strike on the city of Ashkelon near the border and marked the fighting's first Israeli fatality in 5 years. 8 Palestinian militants have also died in the airstrikes, which formed part of Israel's vow to continue. A pregnant woman and her 1-year-old baby were also killed. Israel is claiming their deaths were caused by a misfired Palestinian rocket. I mean, that's a Palestinian building right there. This is a pile of rubble. I mean, I'm assuming it doesn't even say it in this picture, the caption here. But I'm just assuming from this Arabic writing that that's a Palestinian building that is now a pile of concrete. Israel's troops are reportedly preparing to seize the Gaza border. Airstrikes aftermath in the Strip after Palestinian militants fired more than 450 rockets onto their territory, which killed the first Israeli citizen since 2014. That's an airstrike right there. 7 Palestinians have also died, including a pregnant woman and 1-year-old baby, in airstrikes which formed Israel's retaliation. That's an Israeli taking cover as missiles are flying over above. Israeli airstrikes. This is actually damage from a missile from Hamas, and you can see the extent if it'll play. We'll come back to that. And Israel's defense forces are standing by to invade the blockaded Gaza Strip. I mean, the damage is there, but it's nothing like this. Okay, it's just not, man. And I'm generally pro-Israeli. I do not think Israel is the reason for all the world's problems. But it's so one-sided. It's a joke. Okay? Anyways, let me continue. It's actually, it just went on to the next video, I believe. And Israel, it has nothing to do with this. Israel's defense forces are standing by to invade the blockaded Gaza Strip, according to the Independent. Fighting came as leaders from Hamas, the militant group that rules Gaza, and the smaller armed faction Islamic Jihad were in Cairo for talks with Egyptian mediators aimed at preventing a fraying ceasefire from collapsing altogether. It also comes at a sensitive time for Israel, which is to mark its Memorial Day and Independence Day holiday this week, before hosting the Eurovision Song Contest in the middle of the month. Prolonged fighting could overshadow the Eurovision and potentially deter international travelers from coming to the festive event. It all got started Friday over. My computer is overheating because of the Daily Mail. Over an incident at the border. They still have those weekly marches on Friday, every Friday, and supposedly there was sniper fire from the Palestinians at Israeli troops that wounded 2 Israeli troops. And so Israel's response ended up killing 4 Palestinians in 2 separate instances. That evening, Friday evening, I understood. And so Saturday morning, the rockets started. 50 rockets were fired into Israel from Gaza by Hamas. And it just began from there. So the latest flare-up came after 4 Palestinians were killed in 2 separate incidents on Friday. 2 of them were shot dead during the weekly Great March of Return protest near the Israeli border east of Gaza, while an air raid targeting a Hamas outpost killed 2 members of the movement's armed wing. The Israeli army said the air raid was in response to a shooting that wounded 2 of its soldiers near the border. Supposedly there's a sniper at the border. I don't know if that was during the Great March of Protest that they have every Friday or what. An Israeli drone attack near a vehicle which injured 3 Palestinians preceded the barrage of rockets fired, our correspondent said. And then, so that's how it began. And then over at CNN, and the toll was already up to 600. I mean, the 600 rockets fired from Gaza into Israel. That is, that those are Palestinian buildings. I don't know if that's that same picture. It's a pile of rubble now. So I just want to run through some of the footage as quickly as possible and just kind of wrap up this video. There's just so much going on. It's difficult to kind of tell you in 15 minutes or so. But just to give you an idea of the damage in Gaza and Israel, here's CNN talking about 450 rockets fired in response to 200 airstrikes by the IDF, on militant targets, and what they called was a underground rocket-making location or manufacturing facility.
This marks the first contentious escalation.
But again, that's Palestine right there. I mean that's buildings and blocks that are just completely level. Because again, this Israel's military. It's just a very very mighty force, man.
Between Israel and Gaza militants since the Israeli election almost a month ago.
CNN correspondent Oren Lieberman is on the Israeli-Gazan border. Joins us live. Intensified over the last 24 hours. That number from the Israel Defense Forces. That's in response to IDF's carrying out airstrikes on about 200 militant targets in Gaza, including an underground rocket manufacturing facility.
This marks the first.
And over at the Daily Mail, they just have a ton over here. So that's an Israeli airstrike right there. That's a Palestinian building that's now a pile of rubble. I showed you that already before. Israeli airstrike there. That's I showed you that as well. Here's actually, this is from a Hamas rocket, Come on. Right there. And according to this, shocking footage of aftermath of deadly rocket attack in Ashkelon. That's the border town in Israel. So this is an airstrike. Whatever, dude. It's just unreal. That's an Israeli airstrike. This is a Hamas rocket fired into Israel. This is Palestinians carrying an infant through the street that was killed, according to the Palestinians, from an Israeli airstrike. The Israelis say it was from a misfired Hamas rocket. These are all airstrikes into Gaza from the IDF, Israeli Air Force. I don't know what's going to, I'm sure, well, I don't know what's going to happen from here. More Israeli airstrikes. But that's right there. That is the damage from a rocket from Hamas from Gaza into Israel. And naturally, I mean, it put a giant hole through a concrete wall into some building. I don't know if that's somebody's home or what. But that's a far cry from an entire city block or giant 8 to 15-story building being completely knocked down to a pile of rubble. I mean, it's pretty one-sided. And it's just one side is super strong and the other one's not. So, yeah, that's pretty much the situation there. We'll see where it goes from here, but it seems to be escalating, not de-escalating. All right, well, thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.